You gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis. What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you? It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, is it not?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. You look good, Coach.
Oh, try it. Thank you.
Welcome to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Thursday in the Quad Cities. Thursday, January 29th. Thank you guys for joining us. However, you are checking out the show, whatever platform you're on, we greatly appreciate it. We are nearly through the work week. It is Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday. So we're almost there. And thank you for choosing us to help you get through the work week as well. If you're watching us live on YouTube, thank you for that. Hopefully you're subscribing. I'm getting close to 1,500 subscribers. So if you are subscribing, thank you. If you have not yet subscribed, what are we waiting for? Let's get that done right now. And then tell a friend or two or 10 about what we're doing each and every weekday right here in the Quad Cities Off the Air. We're also live on X. X has been very, very good to us. So if you're on X watching the show, thank you for that. Same thing with YouTube. Both of the platforms, be interactive. On YouTube, we have the chat going right now. So if you have questions for myself, complaints, all those kind of things, the guests that are coming up, be interactive as can be when it comes to this show, and also do the same on X as well. We are available on all the podcasting platforms as well. So everyone who listens to the show all the time, and we know there are those everyday listeners, and we appreciate that. You can get the show wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Podbean, Spotify, iHeart, you name it. Just go put in Off the Air with Matt Randazzo, and you can check out the show each and every day as well. And also, welcome to our viewers in Central Iowa. We are streaming on the WHO app every evening at 7 p.m. So thank you guys for checking out the show as well. It's been a fun week so far. We've had Kyle Huseman, Pat Anger, John Bonenkamp, Tom Kakert, Tyler Tashman, new Rock Island head coach Anthony Roome yesterday, Makokata head coach Chad Specht was on the show a few days ago. So it's been a busy, fun week when it comes to guests on the show. If you've missed them, go back and check them out. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday show. Plenty to get caught up on if you've missed out this week. A lot to get to on today's show. What a night it was at Carver Hawkeye Arena. A crazy, weird game where there was like 2 or 3 games in the span of one, maybe at least 3. So much to get to, so much to talk about. Our good friend, Nicholas Baer, former Bettendorf standout, former Hawkeye standout, will join us to break down the Hawkeyes' victory over USC last night at Carver Hawkeye Arena. That's in a matter of moments. Also, plenty of high school football to talk about here in January. We talked with Rock Island head coach Anthony Roome yesterday. If you missed that, go check it out. They're still trying to figure out how the football season's going to look when it comes to the IHSA. So we have Greg Armstrong from View from the West joining us later here in hour number 1 to kind of talk about those things and everything else when it comes to catching up with Greg. So that's coming up later on in hour number 1, and then in hour number 2, we'll get set for the Illini basketball game tonight against Washington. We'll also go over the Illinois football schedule. We did that yesterday with the Hawkeye schedule with Tom Kakert and Tyler Tashman. That was a bunch of fun. We'll do the same with Mike Cagley coming up from the Illini Guys coming up later on in hour number 2 of the show. So a lot to get to. As we mentioned, Iowa did win last night. I didn't write down the final score. I believe it was 71 to 70. I should know these kind of things. I got all my show prep done, and then I looked down. I'm like, I didn't put an Iowa final score down. I'm pretty sure it was 71 to 70, excuse me, as we look at this beautiful live TV as we rock and roll. Iowa, gotta look at yesterday's. It's going to be right, and I'm going to be like, why did I waste all that time going back and checking out the final score? People are probably yelling at me right now. I was wrong. 73-72 the final last night at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Good thing I checked. Crazy game. Iowa fell down 10-0 early. They got up by as many 17, I think, in the second half. Looked like they were going to roll, and then crazy finish for USC as they caught fire late in that game. And it came from a young man, Woods, Cam Woods, 33 points. He came in averaging 5 a game. So it got down really close late. USC took the lead with 8 seconds to go. Iowa gets fouled. Bennett Sturts makes free throws. Iowa survives. Nicholas Baer coming up in a matter of moments. We'll get into all that with the Bear Cage. Iowa State, how about that? They go on the road to Texas Tech, and they knock off the Red Raiders. And it was an impressive night and a history-making night for several reasons. One, Iowa State winning 84-70, the final in that one. Bill Fenley, Davenport's own, becomes the winningest coach in Big 12 history. Congratulations to him. And they've turned things around. Obviously, learning to play without Addie Brown. They got a little more healthy, but they have some of the best players in the conference. And they go on the road after 2 victories, and they knock off Texas Tech 84-70. 70, the final in that one. And a big reason why was Audie Crooks. She was really, really good as usual. 33 points, 12 rebounds. She becomes the fastest player in college basketball history to get to 2,000 points. 89 games is all it took for her to get to 2,000 points, the quickest player to ever do that. So congratulations to Iowa State. Big victory for them. History-making victory for Bill Fenley and for Audie Crooks as well. The Fighting Illini women hosted number 2 UCLA, and they played well, and they nearly got the job done. They lost by 13, and I think it's one of those games where when I say got the job done, I don't mean actually win the game, but to hang close, to hang tough with that team. Now, UCLA will head back home. They'll take on Iowa coming up on Sunday. Meanwhile, the Hawkeyes head out west. They'll play tonight against USC out in LA at 8 o'clock. So plenty going on in the world of women's basketball. We'll catch up with a bunch more of it coming up later on in the show. One more news and notes to get to before we get to the Bear Cage. We mentioned yesterday that this guy, Todd Monken, became the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. And it was pointed out to me, and I knew this, forgot about this. Our good friend and Quad City legend, Dan Pearson, reminded me of this, that Todd Monken is a Knox College grad. He's a 89 grad of Knox College. He's a Hall of Famer down at Knox College. Played 2 sports there. Holds like 5 football records. Also a letter winner in baseball. 2 different seasons. So Todd Monken becoming the head coach of the Cleveland Browns with a local tie. Knox College grad right down in Galesburg, Illinois. So very cool to see Todd Monken become a head coach. Obviously the offensive coordinator for the Ravens over the past several seasons, now a head coach in the NFL. So if you're a Knox College grad out there, be proud because Todd Monken is representing the Prairie Fire very well in the NFL. So, well, it was a crazy game, like I mentioned, at Carver Hawkeye Arena last night. Let's break it all down with the Bear Cage. So joining us now to talk all about one of the most entertaining, I don't know if entertaining is the right word, Nicholas, the wildest Iowa basketball games you're going to come across. Nicholas Baer right now joins us on Off Day with Matt Randazzo. That was fun last night, I guess.
Matt, we must have watched 2 different games. That was a walk in the park, easy, no sweat, breeze of a win. So, there's a lot going on there for sure.
It was like 2 or 3 different games in one. I loved it because I was kind of running kids around doing dad stuff, but I was watching the game and then also texting with you. And Nicholas, the beginning of that game, and we kind of talked that, like, I thought the week off would help them, but there is such a thing as rust. It was a 10-0 start. You've been in there. You've played the game. Getting a week off can be good, can be bad. Is there rust coming off of it? Kind of talk about or maybe explain the start for Iowa.
Yeah, I think because I've definitely had that experience. Like you have like a week off. I think in this example, I had 8 days off, right? And I remember even talking with my buddies, like, man, it feels like it's been forever since I had a chance to watch like an Iowa basketball game. It's only been a week, but I remember when I was playing, one of the things, like you can play against each other, you can scrimmage, you can do all that stuff you want, but there's certain things of like you go 8 days without a game, and you feel like there's a little bit of like a slower start for sure. And obviously those 8 days really impactful if you had guys, you know, with a sore ankle or people who are hurt getting back and getting some recovery, which is great. But there is, I think for me, it always felt like anything more than like 4 or 5 days, it felt like there's a little bit of like tuning up you need to have for the first few minutes of a game. So they certainly got up and rolling in the second half for sure. But yeah, to your point, I think it did kind of feel like multiple games in one.
It looked like they had some rust early on, and I was kind of surprised at the beginning of the game because it was 10-0, 10-1. And they weren't playing well. They couldn't score it, and they kept running. They kept rolling. I think you and I were texting that, man. I was kind of surprised Ben didn't take a timeout. Your thoughts on those kind of situations? You're at home, you don't want to burn one early, but you're just not playing great. I think Mount Fran probably would have erupted in the first 5 minutes, whether you guys or the referees or both. Your thoughts on that early stretch and when you call one, when you don't, all those kind of things.
Yeah, I think Coach McCollum definitely has kind of had it seems like so far this season of like riding it out, like letting his guys kind of figure it out. And eventually they did. I think in the past I was on the same track, like want to call a timeout, like get your guys organized, like get everyone kind of settled down a little bit. But like I think the key thing was they were able to kind of get some stops that led to runouts, right? I think in first few minutes, offense was a little slow, couldn't get much, but then turning the defense into offense, getting some layups, and then kind of letting that spark thing. So a little bit different philosophy around the timeouts, but glad he had them late as well.
They didn't play well, and they were down a lot, and then next thing you know, you watched, and it's weird watching this Iowa team, and I'll be the first to say, like, scoring was never a problem in the past. It's been since the Licklider years that scoring is a problem. So watching a team just struggle to score it is strange. It's different. And you needed a spark. I think they put Hassan in, kind of hoping to get that spark offensively. It was the defense that ironically and ultimately kind of sparked the offense. Kind of talk to that, because I think you texted defense to offense. I mean, that's what it was during that stretch, middle of the second half, that got Iowa back into it.
I mean, it was, what we always call it was like turnovers to touchdowns, which that's really what it was. Like, and I think the one thing I've really admired about this Iowa team, like, super active hands, being able to like get deflections, get turnovers, and then being able to kind of convert to the other end. So I've really noticed that I think that's an area where they kind of like lean on their defense to try to spark things. But I mean, a lot of that was led by Tavian Banks as well. I know we're going to talk about him a little bit, but he was fantastic both halves. And I mean, like 20.7 rebounds, and that doesn't even account for all the different deflections and fouls he drew and everything. But he was a key piece of all those runs.
No, he was really good. Nicholas Baer joining us right now and off the air with Matt Randazzo. Get to halftime, Nicholas. It's a 1-point game, and I felt good. Like, and Iowa fans, I thought should feel good because they didn't play well at all, and there they were, and they were a heavy favorite coming in. I think a 9.5, 10-point favorite. So I felt like, okay, they played their worst. I think it was 1 of 11 from 3, and they were talk about the start to the second half, because if Iowa fans want to take anything away from that game, the way they played to start the second half, they looked like a Sweet 16 type of team during that first 10 minutes, maybe 8 minutes of the first half.
Yeah, I think a couple things I noticed. I think Bennett Sturts came out way more aggressive second half, knocked down a couple big threes, a couple big roars in the crowd, which was great. Kept getting stops. I tell you what, man, it helps when you're playing against a 26-year-old who has 7 turnovers. Like that Chad Baker-Mazar, I was texting my buddies back and forth, like, I would always get some slack. I remember from like my coaching staff, I like had a turnover, had a mistake. Like, hey man, like you're redshirt senior, 5th-year senior. I was like 22, and this guy is now 26 and just like got 7 turnovers. Was not playing like a veteran kind of guy. So I think being able to kind of look at this Iowa team, playing really disciplined, getting those turnovers would lead to points. But yeah, I think that 10-minute stretch, like they really feel like they were in a flow, they're in a rhythm there, and I think get the league out to 17 at one point, which is great. So I'd love to see Bennett Sturts continue to be as aggressive as he was to start the second half.
You mentioned Bennett because he was, I mean, there was a while where I think one of my kids was like, how many does Bennett have? And I'm like, I think just 2 free throws. And then one of them corrected me. He had a bucket. So it was like 4, maybe at the half. Is there, and kind of talk to that, because you don't, he's a guy that doesn't hunt shots, if that makes any sense. Everything's in the flow of the offense, and obviously everything runs through him. Is there a difference between being aggressive and being overly aggressive, and then maybe not being aggressive enough? I felt like first half wise, he didn't assert himself as much as he maybe should have with his team struggling. Played really well in the second half. Your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he always seems like he lets the game come to him and like tries to get other people involved first. And I think we've seen pieces where you can kind of turn up that aggressiveness a little bit. I think one thing that I've noticed is, not all points are like, from a emotional, like a vibe standpoint, the same. Like I remember, like, if when I was playing, like a Jordan Bohannon 3 from 28 feet, 30 feet had a different impact on that environment than like, maybe like a step in 3 from myself or another bench player. Like there are certain things about the players when they get going, they get rolling, it gets the crowd rolling, gets your teammates rolling. And I think that's the piece where I've keyed in a little bit. Like when I went on that 20-4 run to start the second half, like the crowd's rolling, everyone's rolling. I think that has a much more important piece because it is Bennett Sturts drilling step back threes versus maybe like, a couple 1-and-1s or, at a bonus type of thing. So I think that's one thing that I'd like to see is just kind of understanding the moment a little bit as well. And like really being able to go forward and kind of propel the team too. So just a little different.
Nicholas Baer joining us right now and Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. So we're talking about a 17-point lead, place is rocking, everything's good. What happened?
End of story, right?
Right? And I think that's the way we would have liked it. What have you been part of a game like that? Well, because it's different because yes, you let a lead slip away, but in no world would you have thought that Woods, who's averaging 5-6 points a game, is going to score, 19 points in 5 minutes or whatever it was. What happened in that? Have you seen anything like that?
I've seen some things like that, and it's more, I think what's tough is you go into a game with a scouting report, and it's like, okay, this guy's averaging 4.5 points a game, 5 points a game. Like, if this guy wants to like be aggressive, like that is good for us, which I think at a certain point you need to adjust of like, all right, hey, maybe this guy hasn't made a 3 all year, but he has just whacked 2. And now he's got like just the offense is running through and we kind of got to adjust a little bit. So it's tough because when you're going in and you've identified a guy of like, hey, we want to make sure Chad Baker-Mazar doesn't get going. We want to make sure we limit the boards. And now all of a sudden this point guard who wasn't really a focal point of their offense starts rolling with the show. So I will say sometimes it is tougher in there when things get a little nervy, like those last 4 minutes when the crowd kind of feels that it's, slipping away a little bit. Like oftentimes I was kind of thinking, would I rather be up 5 with, 4.5 minutes to go after being up 17, or would I rather be like down 4 or 5? If it was a 17-point comeback and you got the crowd at your back and you got everything, all the momentum, it's kind of like it can be difficult to overcome that. But I will give a lot of credit to Alvaro Figueres for kind of helping in those last couple minutes. He had a couple really big buckets to stem the tide a little bit. But yeah, it can be tough once a guy gets rolling like that for sure.
Yeah, Al hit a 3 to go up 6, and I think Iowa took a deep breath, but they just kept coming. I think obviously Tavion Banks not being in the late second half with the fouling out, which again, I texted a referee buddy. I don't want to be that guy, but have you seen a start of a half where the home team gets banged for 7 fouls in the span of less than 4 minutes? I've never seen anything like that.
7, and it was 7-0. I think the thing that was frustrating was they let a lot of physicality go in the first half. Like a lot. They let everyone kind of play. And then the second half, it was, obviously there was, among those 7, there's some different ones, but there were some, little softer ones in there too. But yeah, I will say like 7-0 in my experience, like Coach Carver was letting some people know that it was 7-0. and that was like my experience for sure. And I mean, obviously it ended up balancing out. I think both teams were in the double bonus, right? Towards the end of the game. And I think a lot of that credit to Tavion Banks as well. Like really aggressive, really physical, like getting in, drawing fouls, but also just like being a primary scorer for, a large stretch. I guess question for you, Dazzo, like how are you kind of evaluating between like Sturtz and it feels like Sturtz is kind of the main guy, but it feels like, Banks has become even more valuable to this team.
It's funny because you threw it at me. I was just going to throw it at you. I would look at it that Bennett Sturtz is Iowa's best player, but and I'm maybe thinking that Tavion Banks is their most impactful player or most important player, because I think night in and night out what you're going to get from Bennett Sturtz, and he can be special and do more than that, but he's going to give you 20. He's going to give you 5-6 assists. He's going to rebound it for a guard pretty well. That's going to happen. And then sometimes he's going to be special and he'll get to, 28, 29, 30, whatever. But in order for Iowa to be good, they need that second guy. And I think when he's playing the way he plays last night, the way he played in Indiana, look at that. I mean, like their most impressive win of the season is arguably at Indiana. And it was because of the way he played. But Bennett's Bennett, so it's not taking anything away from him. I would say he's their most important player right now. Your thoughts?
I would agree with that. I think when he fouled out at the under 4, that's when I was like, oh boy, like, where's kind of the offense coming from a defensive lens? He does so much, both rebounding, guarding one-on-one. Like I became more and more nervous as he, exited the game, unfortunately. But I think, what he brings to the table, I think I've been more impressed with him from like a physicality lens, because this Iowa team a little bit undersized, but like, at the same time, I feel like every time I'm looking around, like Tavion Banks is diving on the floor for loose balls. He's making energy plays, getting extra possessions. So I think from that lens, yeah, from an impact, like second most, but also at the same point, like, I mean, he's the second leading scorer. Like, he's averaging 13-5. He's shooting, I think, 53% from three in Big Ten play and 55%
crazy.
or something like that. He's 4 free throws away from that Chris Street record with Chris Street and Jabo have. So, I mean, it's one thing to be like an energy guy, but he's also like producing and scoring and doing a lot for this Iowa team. And really, it seems like, Bennett Sturts kind of needs a co-running mate, and it's definitely been Tavian Banks here.
I think it was Tyler Tashman on X last night, but I'm not going to mess up the quote or what he said, but basically he said what I feel. Like, Tavian Banks might be the worst free throw shooter in the Big Ten, or the guy you don't want shooting. You never feel comfortable. Like, all right, and they leave him open. Do you know what I mean? It's not like they let him shoot it, and you're like, oh, here we go, good shot. Like, it's one of those, like you have your 3-point shooters on the team, Bennett and those guys, and Coop. But Tavian's 56% from three. It's crazy.
I think especially in Big Ten play, like, I think he really only takes good ones though. Like, that's the thing. Like, they kind of leave him open, and if he doesn't catch it in rhythm, if it's not all set, like, he just keeps the ball moving, keeps it playing. But the time he does shoot it, it's a little bit flatter. But hey, man, it's going in at a really high clip, and it's gonna be important for this Iowa team that sometimes can struggle to shoot the ball. So, love to see it.
You mentioned the 30 straight free throws. I want to talk to you about that in a second. But I got to talk about the end, because we got to get to the end. So Iowa gives up the lead with 8 seconds to go, and they're coming. I mean, it felt like, as an Iowa fan, like it was just end the game. It was get this thing done. It wasn't, and you wish. I didn't love Iowa's after the full Garris 3. They may have scored one more bucket, but I hated Iowa's last 2-3 possessions probably, where they I mean, one was a shot clock violation. One, I think they chucked up a 3 that may have drawn rim. I mean, I felt like you needed to score, like you needed to get another bucket in order to win this game. They take the lead with 8 seconds to go. I mean, Bennett, you can never speed up, and he didn't speed up. Like, he got it with 8, and it was 4 when he got to that corner. Didn't look like a timeout was going to be called. It was a foul, right?
Definitely a foul. It was definitely a foul. It's interesting, because I would have thought, like, hey, like, call a timeout, like, either before you mount it, or just like as soon as you're across half court, like, you can get subs in, you get shooters in, you get organized. Obviously, it's only just a 1-point game, but like, the one thing I do like about kind of Coach Collins, like, he's going to trust his guys. Like, he's like, I think the thought process, if I'm reading it, was our best shot is with the ball in Bennett Sturts' hands, and I trust my guy to go make a play, right? So I think credit to USC that, two sides of the coin, like, had Bennett Sturts trapped in the trap box, back to the basket with 5 seconds left, and then, I mean, he just hacks him like explicitly. So I mean, it's from that lens, I think very fortunate for Iowa to have been fouled right there, but at the same time, like, that USC guy's just got to know better. Like, I remember just texting my buddies, like, he lost his mind. Like, you had him right where you wanted him, and credit to Bennett Sturts. Obviously, it's one thing to get fouled, another thing to go knock down 2 free throws in pressure situation like that. So, but yeah, I could not believe that USC guy had him right where they wanted him and then just hacked him.
Yeah, at first, because I was watching, this will sound terrible, but I was going to pick a kid up from baseball, which is even worse because it's January 28th and I'm picking up a kid from baseball. That doesn't make any sense either. And I was watching on my phone, and like, it was it's my phone, so I had to go home and watch to be like, hey, are we going to get all these, like, Iowa, I got to call it home and all those kind of things, and they didn't. It was definitely a foul. Back on the referees too, I will say that I just want a consistent whistle. And like you kind of talked about, it felt different. But the thing is, when Iowa was, 7-0 fouls, they were on like a 12-0 run. So it was hard to like complain about the fouls because they were doing so well offensively, and you almost didn't remember it and all those kind of things. Last shot of the game, that thing I thought was going in. Like, didn't everybody in the building think that guy was going to make that shot because of the way he had played? And
yeah,
it was a little worrisome.
That way. It was interesting though, like, because watching how that play developed, it looked like they were kind of setting up for like a pitch back from Mazzara almost. And then I think he was just like, Cam Wood's like, I'm taking this. Like, I got 19 in a row. Like, I'm hot. I got 33. Like, this is going up. Even though he had made 0 threes going in the game. So, yeah, I mean, very fortunate. I'm very happy for this Iowa team to come out with a win like that. Sometimes like that can be really debilitating after being up that big in the second half to lose. But again, credit to this team finding a way to win and seeing one through.
So Jordan and Chris Street's record's 34 for free throws, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I thought to myself when Banks fouled out was we weren't going to get put in a weird situation, because it was getting to that point where like he couldn't miss a free throw. You know what I mean? Like Jordan was able to miss a free throw at that point. Probably wasn't, the best, but it was able to do. That's and do you think? I think somebody texted me that I think the bench knows about what the deal is. My hope is that early on out in Washington or Oregon or wherever they're going next, maybe they get fouled early and that happens. But that's got to be a record we're going to keep, right?
I think there's a couple different ways to look at it. Obviously, I think Jordan kind of set a precedent of wanting to maintain Chris Street's record and honor in that way. I also remember at a certain point, if it's a 2-point game or if it's like a tie game with 3 seconds left and like David Banks on the line, like I think it's in everybody's best interest if he makes it. So it's tough. I love what Jordan did with Chris, but to remember the Chris Street legacy was always super important to be part of Iowa basketball, and that hopefully David Banks makes a few more free throws and get to that level as well. But I think at this point though, it's kind of either if it's that close of a game, speaking for a lot of folks, I think it's best maybe if David makes it, but also getting a chance to be a part of 2 great Hawks of Jordan Bohannon and Chris Street. Like I think that'd be pretty special too. So
yeah,
it's kind of mixed feelings and a little bit depend on the game. I think both of those guys definitely would want an Iowa win as well. So if those free throws are pivotal in that.
He was 8 of 8 from the free throw line. They were in the double bonus. If he plays those last 4 minutes, there's a good chance he gets 2 more fouls and draws 2 more fouls and goes. So we won't have to worry about that till the next game. I do want to talk quickly with you about moving on. Obviously, they go out west. Winnable games out west. I think they've won 3 straight now. Winnable games out west. It's weird because you've never been part of you in your playing days. If I told you, hey, you got your West Coast swing to Washington and Oregon, you would have been like, what? So it's you've not done it. But they are winnable games, but it's the Big Ten. We just showed Rutgers and USC showed everybody that, and it's just with Iowa, but it happens all the time around the league as well. What was it? Was it Maryland that took Michigan State to overtime last couple nights ago?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, anybody can beat anybody. What's the goal is obviously to go out west to win 2. What's the realistic goal if you're an Iowa fan do you want to split? Can you get 2? You got to avoid 0-2. What's the thought process going into this one?
Yeah, again, I think both very winnable. I think where I'm kind of looking at it as well is kind of like a 4-game stretch here. Like you got out west, Oregon at Washington, but then you get Northwestern at home who's been struggling, and then at Maryland who's also been struggling. So 3 or 4 on the road, but I think these 4 teams are in the bottom 6 or 7 in the Big Ten right now. So I think the mindset here is, we kind of quad one win against, at Indiana, but right now I think it's kind of not as much as important as it is to have these wins, but it's kind of like avoiding bad losses, right? So again, I haven't made the trip out west. I know sometimes that can be difficult. I have been to Washington's arena though. We had a chance to practice there and play there when we were in Seattle for the NCAA tournament my freshman year. So big fan of Seattle. Love that arena. Love getting a chance to practice there a little bit. But I think it's about kind of continuing on with the momentum here, playing in rhythm. Now, no more 8-day rest. Like everyone's just kind of rolling a little bit. So again, tough games, but I think if this team wants to go where we hope they can go, this likely is to be at least 1-1, but preferably 2-0 on the West Coast.
Washington first, correct?
I think Oregon first.
Oregon first, then Washington. I want to get your pick on Oregon, but before I do that, last time you were on, and I got a pick from you, was this. Let's take a listen.
It's going to be pretty decisive, in my opinion. I think Iowa's a better team. I think it's probably going to be, if I had to guess a score line, I know Ket Prince and I were real close last time we did this. So I would say probably like 74-58 is kind of how I'm feeling going this game. More so because I think this Iowa team's going to do a pretty good job defensively of really stymieing this Indiana offense. From what I've seen from them so far, it seems pretty dependent on 2 guys to get going. If you turn one of their faucets off, then it's going to be really difficult. But
It was 74-57. That's good, my friend. That's impressive.
Well, I'm seeing that picture or that clip go back, and I've rearranged my office here a little bit. I got a haircut. Now, like, all of my mojo might be gone. It might have taken all of my, prophetic powers out the window. So we'll see if I can replicate it a little
I
bit.
remember because I was coaching that day, and I quit watching when they were up like 5 or 4 with like 12 to go. And I didn't know what happened. And then I got a text from you as I was like walking off the court that was like, told you. And I don't even think you remembered like how close your prediction was. Did you?
No, I didn't remember how close the prediction was, but I remember predicting I was going to win by like 10, 15. Like that was what I didn't remember the exact score, but I was like, I think they're going to go in there and beat the Hoosiers pretty soundly, and they did. So it was more so that piece, but no, I did not remember that I was that close. But geez, Randazzo, you're putting a lot of pressure on me, man.
Well, that's what I'm about to say. So everybody is sitting there with probably their sportsbook apps open right now, ready to put thousands upon thousands of dollars on what Nicholas Baer is about to say. So, they go to Oregon. Your thoughts? Give me a score prediction. Oregon, did they win late last night?
I did not get a chance to watch. So, and I'll be the first man. I've not had a chance to watch a lot of Oregon. I know they've been hurt a little bit and been kind of down and out. But I think what I'm more so looking at is just from a score standpoint, I think this Iowa team, for the most part, is kind of around that like 70s mark for the most part, high 60s, low 70s. So I'll probably take 72-62. I think 10-point win. But yeah, I think that's kind of around where this Iowa team likes to be. So hopefully another 10-point win on the road. I'll take that all day, Dazzo.
It was UCLA beat them by 16. And Oregon's not very good, and I think they've lost 2 of their better players. But it's Dana Altman. Like I can't get when it's Oregon, I can't get that NCAA tournament out of my mind. Was that past you or your years?
I was on staff. I was a grad assistant that year.
Yeah, yep. I can't. It was the COVID year. Everything was in Indianapolis. It was just weird.
Oregon had VCU got COVID, so they had a first round bye.
They had a first round bye, and I thought I thought the seed wasn't very good. Like they were the most athletic 7 seed I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
Yeah. So, well, let's go get some revenge this weekend. We'll talk to you again next week. Again, final score has 72-62.
72-62. That's what I got.
Book it. Well, we might as well just start talking about that game right now. It's done. It's in the books. So, I enjoyed the game last night. I enjoyed this as always. Nicholas, we'll catch up with you again real soon.
Thanks, Matt.
Nicholas Baer joining us right there on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. Yeah, nailed it last time, and it was a interesting victory for Iowa last night. A lot of good you can take away from that game. Some things they got to fix, but bottom line is they're 15-5, I think, on the season now. Back to 500 in the Big Ten and playing good basketball. So a big trip out west coming up. Coming up here on Off the Air, we're going to talk a little high school football. Rock Island has a new head football coach. There's some changes in the IHSA that's still got to figure out. It's never a bad time to talk high school football with our good friend Greg Armstrong from View from the West. We'll do that right after this. You're watching OTA on a Thursday. We'll be right back. All right, be honest. Are you craving Hungry Hobo again? You know, that fresh sliced meat piled high on those amazing sandwiches, hot off the grill chicken and steak, with all those delicious toppings, the biggest and best selection of baked potatoes, or simply some waffle fries dipped in cheese. Well, now that Quad City favorite is even easier to get. Download the Hungry Hobo app today. Order ahead, skip the line, and earn rewards all at the same time. There's Double Points Monday and exclusive specials as well. With 12 locations in the Quad City area, it's Hungry Hobo, now even easier to find, but still hard to resist.
Rafferty Funeral Home, dedicated to serving families in the Quad Cities since 2007.
Hi, welcome. Here, come on in.
An experienced staff plans each service to reflect the unique life and legacy of your loved one. Rafferty Funeral Home is proud to serve our community with dignity, respect, and compassion, helping you to celebrate your traditions and lasting memories no matter your faith, culture, or budget. Rafferty Funeral Home in Moline. Call today to discuss prearrangements.
When it comes to quality, convenient pizza, Godfather's Pizza in Silvis has you covered. featuring a beautiful dine-in area, delivery, and a carry-out window. Godfather's Pizza is that pizza you grew up with, not a convenience store. You see, at Godfather's Pizza, the dough is made fresh daily. That mozzarella cheese is shredded fresh and never frozen. And those toppings are abundantly piled high each and every time. Locally owned and operated since 2010, Godfather's is a huge supporter of local athletes right here in the Quad Cities. So come on by and check them out at 1211 Avenue of the Cities in Silvis. Order online at godfathers.com and reunite with that same delicious pizza you grew up with. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Thursday in the Quad Cities. It's Thursday, it's January, it's cold and nasty outside, and everyone thinking basketball, and I get it. Great weekend of basketball coming up. High school-wise, you got Rocky and Moline coming up on Friday night at Wharton Fieldhouse. We'll talk more about that tomorrow on the show, but we're always talking football and high school football, and any chance I have, any excuse to bring this man on the show, I'm going to do it. Greg Armstrong from View from the West joining me right now. Couple things high school football wise I want to catch up on with you on. Also, like the Sox made a trade. We could probably hit that at the end. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's
anyways,
interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, is it weird not having football season? Like, is it too much kids, too much family, like that kind of stuff?
It is a crazy time. I mean, it's always crazy time of year when you got 4 active kids, but I've been doing a lot of running around. So, we've talked about it off the air with Matt Randazzo. We've talked about it before we hit record here, but my wife had ankle surgery, so she's not driving. So I'm doing all the driving for everybody's activities. So,
but Becca, he's not complaining. All right. Not that that she ever watches the stupid show. Like, not that she would in a million years ever see this, but he's not complaining.
But you found out some wives do listen to this show recently. So
yes.
We'll get into that.
Yes. In fact, one that just recently had or I think it was the mom. But anyways, females do watch the show. My wife doesn't at all. But I tell people all the time, Greg, like we do this and I do the radio gig and some MC22 stuff, but my main job now in life is just to chauffeur kids around. That's what I do for a living. And it's literally from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 8:30 at night, and then you go home and all those kind of things. We're
living in the same parallel universe, man.
And Mitch is doing the same as well. He was going to join us tonight, but bath time got in the way of anything. So anyways, there's always stuff going on with high school football. Last time we talked was the change, and a big change when it came to expanding the postseason and how that, and starting earlier, and how that's going to affect things. But there's still different things going through the IHSA when it comes to that change. Can you explain some things that are certain are currently uncertain, I guess, as we move forward?
Well, yeah. So it was Proposal 19 that was passed a few months ago, and that went through and stated that they would add a round of playoffs. So there'd be expanded playoffs, but that meant that you'd have to start the regular season a week earlier. So we cut into that week 0. That scrimmage game is now gone, and you start the season a week earlier. But the problem, I guess not the problem, the way that proposal was drawn up was that it really didn't start practices any earlier, or the schedule, kind of the preseason, was then kind of squeezed in to a shorter amount of time. So when we looked at it at the time, when the vote went through, I was surprised to read that there was sports medicine advisory committee meetings, and the minutes indicated that they weren't really thrilled with the idea of less practices and less acclimatization, hours or meetings for teams before they hit the field in the regular season. That they cited that as a potential issue. Regardless of that, the vote went through. And I will say, we've talked about it on this show before. The coaches I've talked to, the majority of them were not in favor of this. So I'm not sure where in the state the pockets lie that it was in support, but it went through and it passed with a pretty wide majority. That surprised me because I haven't talked to a lot of coaches. I've heard a few. I know there's a few in our area, a few in the Western Big Six, a few around the Three Rivers that did vote it in, but a bulk of who we talked to didn't want it. So that was kind of the reaction after it went through was, how did this go through? Why did this go through? And then the follow-up was, are we really going to proceed against the advice of the medical professionals that are on the committee that the IHSA puts together? So the IHSA looked at that, and then I think they decided that they were going to have a meeting to discuss that. And then it was decided that they were going to have a legislative meeting to decide if they should let member schools vote on expanding the schedule, the calendar. So then you would get the amount of practices squeezed in before the games start. So you still following along here?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with
tricky.
you. I'm with you.
Yeah. And so now it will go to, it was approved. It will go, this amendment to the proposal will go to member schools. The voting opens, I believe, today. And then it will go through middle of February. And then from there, we'll decide whether they are, in fact, going to extend the football calendar, which is already the longest season in the IHSA, the longest running sport. Or if they vote no, if schools vote no, then they would, in theory, stick with what they currently have. And it goes against what, the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee suggests. So it's a really tricky spot for schools to be in, if you're asking me what they're voting on.
So basically, the expansion is happening. Now the vote is whether they're going to make it safe or not.
Yeah, essentially.
I mean,
you can word
simple?
it that way. Yeah. And so that's the tricky part, right? Is that, I've seen and heard from some coaches that, there's a lot of discussion going around about should coaches vote no, that they don't want to expand the calendar. And I think maybe that's in hopes of long-term or, in the immediate reaction of, well, we can't proceed without it, So, but if you vote no, that seems, like you're putting your name on the dotted line saying we're disregarding player safety.
Yeah.
So it's a tough spot for schools to be in, to where it's a lose-lose situation. You're not going to want to put your name on the dotted line saying you're not worried about safety, but you don't want to expand the season anymore because of the issues we've talked about, where the season's already long. It runs into summer. It runs into other sports potentially. It's really messy right now.
Yeah.
It's all the way around.
No, that's and two, like, it's also, like you mentioned, the way it's viewed from parents and everyone else as well. It'll be an interest. So if they expand it, how much earlier will they be starting?
So you're putting me on the spot, but I believe it's a few days. They're adding a few days in there. I believe it goes to August 5th.
Okay.
Would be the start, and that would be able to accommodate the 3 or 2 extra practices you need to get back up to the normal recommended amount of days.
No, absolutely.
Or practices, I should say.
Greg Armstrong from View from the West joining me right now on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. Regardless, it's going to be a different look, most likely, to next season and how this looks. It'll be a different look in the Western Big Six. It'll be a different look when it comes to the Rock Island Rocks. We had new head coach Anthony Roome on yesterday. I guess first I want to get your thoughts on the hire. It's a guy that's had a great journey through the Western Big Six. I feel like he's built his resume up to be qualified to take a job like Rock Island, and he's learned from really good coaches along the way. Your thoughts, Anthony Roome, the next head coach at Rock Island High School?
Well, that's where my head goes to start, is that he's a Geneseo grad. He's coached under Mike Morrissey at Moline. He's coached under Nick Welch in UT as they've continued to build that program. So I think that when you look at overall, he's been surrounded by good football and some good leaders of football programs, right? I think that's what I want to start, is to know that what has he seen that's worked well? And obviously, things that Morrissey and Welch do that they would admit, maybe, hey, I should have tweaked this, or we adjusted this over time. Maybe there's some things that Roome has seen that they adjusted over time to get better, and he can jump right in and make those adjustments right away. And I think that it's a guy that comes in with a lot of energy. He's excited as a first-year head coach to jump into the Western Big Six as a head coach after learning as an assistant at multiple stops. I think it's a good hire. I think it's a solid hire. And, like I said, he brings a lot of energy to that Rock Island program.
You mentioned energy, and this is nothing against Fritz. I think Fritz did a good job, good human being, good coach, all of those kind of things. But I mean, we watched what Nick Welch and even to an extent Mike Morrissey, and he didn't rebuild Moline football. Moline football was pretty good, and he's continued to make it better. But that energy, that youthfulness, that excitement, that seems to resonate these days. Your thoughts on that in a school and a program that I think they've won 3 games in 2 years, and maybe needs that jolt of energy, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, when the success isn't there, regardless of who the head coach is, I think that if success isn't there, there's not a lot of energy. There's not a lot of excitement around the program. And for a Rock Island program, I think that there's always going to be a certain buzz. When you go to a Rock Island football game on a Friday night, there's always that, level of energy and level of excitement because of just the atmosphere and Rock Island football being is what it is. But I do think, that having a new head coach, getting some new ideas, getting a fresh look at things there, I do think that's exciting. I hope that, the fans and the community are excited for the chance to kind of see this, take over. You talked about Moline and Morrissey coming in and doing what he did at Moline. Really, when I started here, and, it's been several years ago.
We don't have to talk about that.
But, when I jumped in covering the Western Big Six, you looked at who was at the top, and this is before Sterling and Geneseo. You looked at who was at the top, and it was potentially Alleman, Rock Island, right? Those were the names that were up there a lot. And Moline had some years, hit or miss, but it was Rock Island that was above Moline. And then we're talking early 2000s, mid 2000s, and then that flipped. Morrissey really flipped that. And so I think that when you look like going way back, when Vic Boblet took over the job in the, early 90s, I wasn't around this area yet, but talking to Dan Pearson and people who were, like, Rock Island was a spot where football had not been winning. Football was not a thing at Rock Island. That was a basketball school. And Vic Boblet came in with a great resume, a great background, and kind of built what is the historic Rocky run through the 90s, and into the 2000s. So I think that there's something there, right? Like, I know that it hasn't happened recently, but it's not a place that's never won football games.
No, absolutely. You look at, and I mean, the tradition, they just celebrated like 125 years of football. That stadium itself fits like 10,000 people and is a gem in the state of Illinois. I think Mitch was on when there was the opening that came about, and I asked him, I said, how good is this job? And he's mentioned, Rock Island's still Rock Island. It's still a good job.
Yep.
I'll ask you, and it's a tough question to ask, but is it still Rock Island, or is there, I mean, obviously there's the work that needs to be done, but how good a job right now is the Rock Island job in the Western Big Six?
I mean, I think if we're being honest, it lost a little bit of luster, right? Like, I mean, they haven't really been in the mix. And the run through Fritz, I think we were hoping to see more wins. I'm sure that they all were hoping to see more wins, and it didn't materialize. So I think that there's a little bit of shine that's off Rock Island when you talk about Geneseo and Sterling coming in, and they've found success, at their, in the Western Big Six at
and
times.
Quincy as well.
So And when you talk about, exactly. When you talk about Quincy kind of completely flipping the narrative of their historic, of their program and making the historic run that they did. Yep, absolutely. So I think that there's a little bit of, Rock Island's kind of been pushed out a little bit, but it's still right there. I think if you win a few games, you bring in some excitement, I think it's still right there. And I'd be remiss if we didn't bring up, like, Ben Hammer had Rock Island playing some pretty good football. In that mix there, it's not like it's been all that long ago that they have been an exciting, brand of football.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's almost like I don't want to say a sleeping giant, but a snoozing giant right now, where like it's not where it can be. But the thing, last one, when it came to Rock Island, expectations for football I think coaches on all levels are ridiculous. I mentioned yesterday that maybe 2 days ago of the and this is football, NFL. Like 4 years ago, there were 10 new head coaches. Only 8 of those 10 still remain, and that was 4 years ago. 80% of them didn't even last 4 years. And I'm not saying that's the way it is in high school, but winning is important all the way around. How patient do Rock Island fans need to be, should be, when it comes to the rebuild at Rock Island right now?
I think for the first year, more so than looking at the wins, I think, for those really following the program is, how big is that roster when you pick up that program on week one? You know what I mean? How many names are on there? How many kids are in there working towards making this program better? Because that's where it starts, right? Is getting kids in playing football. I don't know where their numbers were at, but I'm just saying in general, that's a sign of a healthy football program is if numbers are good. So that's not an indication of, I don't know what they were in recent years, but I'm sure that's where it starts, that you need to have numbers there. So I think you look there, and then I think that it kind of takes one unexpected win, right? Somewhere in this mix for coaches and more importantly, for the players and the community to kind of buy in and say, all right, we can do this. We can win these games, right? So I think that's where you look kind of on a small level. I don't know if you put expectations on it, kind of depends on, what their non-conference schedule looks like, who they schedule and where they can fit in. They've scheduled some tough non-conference games over the years, and they struggled. They took their lumps against some teams that like Crete Monee, I believe they had. And trying to think of who else was in the mix. Maybe a Bradley Bourbonnais was in there one year where they really good programs, so see what their non-conference schedule looks like. But yeah, you certainly hope to, in that first year, if you look at 4 or 5 wins, 3, 4, 5 wins, and now under the current structure, you're going to get a playoff game out of that. Yeah. So you're going to get an extra round of, a play-in game, I guess is what we may call it going forward, but you get an extra layer of experience. So I don't know, maybe put it there.
I will say this about Rock Island. They play their non-conference schedule. It seems like for the last 4 or 5 years, it's just been, like you mentioned, it's just been daunting. And like, you can't sit there and say, okay, we're going to get that win or that win. And that's not the case other places as well. So more importantly, how is Coach Roome going to do when it comes to the banquet? That's what I wanted to know from him. Like, he's worried about like being the new guy that goes in and throws haymakers. If I'm him, I just throw haymakers. He knows those 2 other dudes. He knows them well. I joked with him because he had Coach Johnson as Larry Johnson as a mentor, and then Mike Morrissey and Coach Welch. And I'm like, how different is some of the demeanor of Coach Johnson to Coach Morrissey to Coach Welch and the excitability? But like I said, I think he knows what Western Big Six football is. I think he'll do a good job when it comes to that as well. What is it like right now for View from the West? Like what's going on? What are we working on? Obviously, you take a breath when the holidays get there and kind of regroup, but there's always football on the minds, especially when it comes to the IHSA and the kind of things that they're having to deal with and figure out this year, because it's going to be a fascinating season, probably one of the more fascinating football seasons in a long time, and that's saying something because it's always really good.
It will be very different. It will look and feel very different, and I don't know how to expect that to play out, because at the outset, I worry that the regular season loses a little bit of luster when majority of teams are now going to get in the playoffs. I worry about that. But I will say, I'll hold judgment back until we see how the year plays out. Let's see what it feels like in weeks 7, 8, 9. So I think they'll be different. There'll be things that are different, different things that mean more than what you had thought about in the past. And, obviously the chase to 5 wins is now gone, so that'll look and feel different, but hopefully there's still some wrinkles in there that make it exciting. That's obviously, what we're looking for. We'll make it exciting. Mitch and I will make it exciting every week regardless, right? So
absolutely.
No, as far as what we're planning, we kind of take January to catch our breath. This offseason's been weird with the proposal and the passing and the amendments and everything else. Starting in February, we're going to really start hammering down a schedule to maybe do some coaching conversations, bring in some coaches, talk to them. I like doing a lot of these coaches conversations in the off season because you can really look at kind of what they did last year and what they're expecting, but then really kind of take a step back and look kind of big picture on their career or just their coaching journey and what they've learned. I like kind of looking big picture and asking them some questions. Got some exciting things, that we're working on. So hopefully we'll get them all figured out and get a schedule out there for everybody.
It's funny you mentioned that because I'll tell people that through this first year of doing this, like, maybe May and June and into July got a little weird when it came to doing 2 hours a day. But that's what you just mentioned was kind of fun. It's almost equally, if not more fun than like right now. It's like Iowa's playing and Illinois is playing and schedule, all these kind of things. I think big picture views are really cool. Like to be able to sit and catch up and have long form conversations with whether it's coaches or players, all those kind of things are really fun. So people need to look forward to that and always be subscribed to View from the West. Before I let you go, I know you have one. I got one just a few weeks ago and I want to give it a little more love. This illustrations or illustrious. It's a book of great gyms in the state of Illinois. Vincent Johnson was on our show. I know he's been on View from the West. Greg, this thing is as cool as it gets.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'd kind of been following along as he was putting the book together and promoting it and getting ready to sell it. And then, man, when I finally got my copy, like, it lived up to everything I hoped it would be. It's awesome. It's such a cool, like, look around the state and just a cool, learning moment to learn about all these different gyms. And I pride myself on knowing a lot of small towns in Illinois, and there's some schools in there I'd never heard of. So that's a lot of fun to kind of discover that. And both of our alma maters made their way into the book. So I am proud of that.
And that's when I talk to him, I'm like, and he's like 6 of the 8. And Don Morris, I think, is great. But he said 6 of the 8 of the big 6 schools we're in. And when he told me Alleman was one of them, I was like, that's very cool. So, no, it's a really cool book. I think you go to illustriousgyms.com and you can pick up your book. He's going around. I know he's going to be in Sterling. He was at Wharton Fieldhouse a few weeks ago. We'll promote every time he's close to our area selling these as well. Greg, I kind of want him to do a stadium one. Like, right? Wouldn't that be?
So when you talked to him, and he mentioned it on our show too, that was kind of where the idea started.
Yeah.
He was going to do football stadiums or football facilities. And then slowly it like morphed into, he saw some cool gyms and kind of went that route.
Yeah.
But he still has a lot of photos of football locations, and gyms and fields. So I would love that. Absolutely. I would love that.
I'll say to my last day that one of the most enjoyable things I did at WQAD was the stadium series and going around. Now, at that point, I just wanted to get out of the house and I wanted to make sure I had enough content not to lose my job during COVID. But it turned out to be really cool. And when you have Rocky Stadium, and I think ours was Rocky Stadium, Roscoe Eads, Geneseo, UT, I think were the top 4, the Soul Bowl as well. And then I think we went to Iowa for one. See, Iowa, Greg, is the state adjacent to Illinois. They play football over there too. You've heard of it. You live in it, but we won't hold that against you. So again, go check out the copy of the book. Last but not least, when it comes to new merchandise this year for View from the West, can we do an I'm a Mitch and I'm a Greg shirt?
You got to hang.
Don't you think people would buy those?
I don't know. Maybe. I guess they would.
Are you worried
I know you would.
Are you worried that I might have to buy one of each? And then whatever mood I'm in, it's like my kids. I don't have a favorite kid. Well, I do. It just depends on the day. Maybe it depends on the day. Yeah. Are you worried that Mitch might outsell you?
I mean, it's a fun competition. You're intriguing me now with the idea of like the competition. I am a little nervous.
How bad would it be if you like walked home one day and you knew, or not walked home, you have a car, but got home one day and like you knew Becca wasn't very happy with you and you walked in and she was wearing an I'm a Mitch guy like shirt. Like that would hit home pretty deep. So just a thought throw it out there. I can't wait for football season. I say to people all the time, it's my favorite time of the year. I say that, and then March Madness will come up, and I'll say that is as well. But make sure people are subscribing off to View from the West, and football will be here before you know it.
Well, I mean, we already did like a scouting, trip. We scouted out the other bar. What was that, a month ago, to make sure it was still good to go, planning ahead. That's the only reason we stopped that day.
Greg, it's called a bar crawl. That's what we did. It wasn't scouting or not. It's fine.
It was work. It was podcast work.
We scouted like 6 or 7 bars that day. So we're really ahead of ourselves. But anyways, always appreciate it. Next time Mitch won't big time us. We can get the family back together again, all that kind of stuff. Socks. Were you surprised by the trade?
Not really. I mean, I guess like the weird thing was like you'd heard so much about it forever. And then like in the off season, I felt like I hadn't really heard a lot about it. And then all of a sudden it was done, right? You felt like you heard about the idea of it for a long time, and then boom, it happened. I mean, the haul they brought back, this Luis Angel Acuna, obviously it's Ronald Acuna Jr.'s brother. So, that's a great start. He's never really done much in the major leagues. I think he will be Major League Baseball ready, considering like the Sox will now have a need in the outfield. He can play a lot of positions. I think it's probably good to just get something for Luis Robert. You don't really need him in the moment. And they went out and spent money on a reliever immediately with the money they got back from the Robert deal. So I guess that's, money they're spending in other areas to try to improve the ball club. So sure, I'm okay with it.
I know he's Acuna's brother, and that's intriguing, but sometimes a brother can be fantastic, and then there's a Larry that comes along. You got to be careful. just because they're brothers doesn't mean they're going to be as good. Like there's Larrys every corner you turn. There's always a Larry.
Poor Larry.
Catching
but I will
strays.
say, my favorite moments covering the John Deere Classic with you is you talking and bantering with your brother Larry, especially when we'd be on the golf cart and he'd be yelling at people and you'd be like, Larry, quiet.
And telling the story. We won't get into it, but the story every year.
You got some brotherly stories, no doubt about it.
Okay, buddy. I appreciate it. We'll talk way more Sox when it's like a June day and I call you up and say, Greg, I need you to come on here and talk some Sox, and we'll do that then. But all right. And how crazy was your house with the Bears?
Oh, it was wild. Yeah, it was wild.
I'm glad that's over. Whew, that was obnoxious.
I hate listened every week to hear you say like, how you were justifying that they, still were going and whatever. So.
They got a great coach. They do. I said nice things.
You're right.
The running game was really good. I'm just not. I think Caleb. Yeah. I mean, he's not bad, but I'm just not ready to crown him as the greatest quarterback in the history of the world. Like everybody, I get it. Bears fans should love him. I would love them.
Yeah. I already bought the shirt that said he's the greatest quarterback in the history of the world. So
you'd be surprised. I mean, I get pigeoned into being like a Caleb hater, and I'm not.
Who are these mysterious people that you always reference? These mysterious Bears fans you always reference.
I will send you the screen grabs. Trust me. I will. In fact, one of them I know, and he's a great guy, and I'm going to have him on the show because we go back and forth on Twitter all the time about stuff. And I said, I want to find a way, Greg. This is getting way off course. I'm trying to find a way to make the show. I would love to do callers, like old school sports radio. I don't know. Obviously, I can't do that. I don't know whether I can, I don't know. I got to figure out a way because I want to do a way to like take calls and have people yell at me and all that kind of stuff. Weezy says I should just go heel during Bear season and just hammer away at them no matter if I believe it or not.
You kind of do that sometimes.
Kind of already do. But I'm always right. That's the problem. Anyways, Greg, hey, I appreciate it. We'll catch up soon. Thanks, buddy.
All right. See you, buddy.
All right. That's Greg Armstrong, View from the West. I know it's weird because, hey, it's January, but high school football is always relevant. New head coach at Rock Island. Talked about that, the different look of Illinois, and still trying to figure out when their season is going to start when it comes to practices and all those kind of things. So great to catch up with Greg, as always. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk a little Illini when it comes to their game tonight against Washington, and then also they have a football schedule. We talked all about Iowa's yesterday, and people got cranky. Well, Illinois got one too. We'll talk about the Illinois football schedule with Mike Cagley from the Illini Guys. It's next right here on OTA.
Give me the keys. Learning to drive can be stressful for both the student and, yes, the parent as well. Relax. There's an easy way to avoid the stress. Skiles Driving School in East Moline has been helping new drivers hit the road with confidence for over 20 years. Whether you're a teen earning your first license or an adult looking for behind-the-wheel training, we've got you covered. Their certified instructors are patient, experienced, and use modern vehicles equipped for safety and comfort. From classroom instruction to real-world driving, we make learning safe, affordable, and even fun. Call 309-278-0098 or visit skylesdriving.com. Skiles Driving School. Get in, buckle up, drive your future forward.
Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Thursday in the Quad Cities. It's a big night of college basketball once again. Of course, we talked with Nicholas Baer earlier in the show. Iowa surviving a weird, crazy game in Iowa City with USC. Iowa now heads west, and it's Illinois taking center stage tonight. One of the hottest teams in the country, hottest teams in the Big Ten, coming off an impressive victory on the road at Purdue without Kylan Boswell. And of course, it was the Keaton Wagler show on Saturday in Indiana at Purdue. So joining me now to talk all about that and much more, our good friend Mike Cagley from the Illini Guys. Mike, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm trying to recover from one of the Purdue guys had a theory that he put out on his podcast that if Kylan had been around, Illinois would have lost because Keaton wouldn't have got all the shots that he got because Kylan would have had to have the ball.
No, because he didn't get all the shots. I know he scored 46, but it was the most efficient 46 points in the history of the world. Like, what is he, 13 to 17?
Shots. Yeah, 17 shots to do that. And, of course, when you go 9 from 11 from the three and you make the three look like a free throw. But the funny thing is he did it from like 4 steps back. I mean, there was just some unbelievable shot making. But if you go down and you break down the last, 10 possessions of the game, the thing that was amazing about Keaton was that he didn't take the shots like you would expect a closer to do. Instead, he made the right play and got it to the right person. It literally reminded me of what LeBron gets yelled at a lot by the Michael Jordan fans. They go, well, LeBron doesn't take the shots. Well, LeBron will get the ball to the guy who should take the shots.
Yeah.
And I think Wagler did an incredible job of finding the open man. And what makes him so tough, in my opinion, is he's cerebral enough to look at the defense and understand what they're giving him. And then he takes that. He doesn't try to go outside of himself, just takes what the defense gives. If you decide you're going to let him make a pass to the weak side, he makes a pass to the weak side. If they're going to dare him to drive, he drives. And if they want him to, if they say, well, we'll double team him when he gets in the lane, he'll hit the guy outside. And that's what you expect from a third or fourth year player, not a freshman.
Yeah, no, he's like, and I told Jim Atson was on the show on Monday, and I said, Jim, it was like, and he was in West Lafayette, and I'm like, I don't think he shot enough. I mean, you could argue that, like what we just kind of talked about, that 17 shots, if you score that and you're shooting like that, you should probably find some shots. But he didn't hunt. He didn't hunt shots. He made basketball plays. Right. Jim Atson said it's the best performance by an Illinois basketball player that he's seen in person. And I don't want to age you, Mike. You're young, you're in your prime, all those kind of things. But you've watched your fair share of Illinois basketball.
I'm older than you.
I know. Where do you rank where do you rank what you watched on Saturday when it came to, I mean, there's probably bigger performances in bigger games, if that makes sense, when it comes to postseason, all that kind of, but when it comes to a body of work, 13 of 17, 9 of 11, 46 points on the road at a top 5 team in the country, where do you rank it? That's got to be top 3.
It's got to be, yeah. I mean, it's got to be darn close. You have Darren Williams against Arizona, but that statistically wasn't like that. Although the pressure-packed plays down the stretch were amazing.
Yeah,
and which Keaton did that too.
Yeah.
You do Paul's performance against Ohio State, a top 5 team, but that was at home. And you probably do Terrence Shannon in the Big Ten tournament, where he literally, put up 30 and turned the Big Ten tournament into, hey, this is the Terrence Shannon show, and you guys all ought to watch it. It has to be up at that level.
Yeah.
And, because the funniest thing is, and I don't remember who put this on Twitter, and whoever did, I apologize. But somebody said they got a tweet from a buddy. It might have been Dave Wisnowski, but they got a tweet from a buddy, and he said, this guy gets 46 points on 17 shots. I'm used to Andy Kaufman getting 17 points on 46 shots. And just made me laugh. Kaufman had his one, but that was an overtime game. So again, I go back and I would probably say it. I think Jim's right, and Jim's seen more live than I have, and I've been watching Illinois pretty regularly since 77. And I don't know that you could find a better performance. But what you said about not hunting the shots, if he had been hunting shots, and I'm not joking here, he might have scored 60.
Yeah. Oh, well, and Mike, what I tell people all the time is, or all this week is that because I watched him in person in Iowa City, and I knew he was good, and I knew I had plenty of respect for him coming in and all those kind of things. But like anytime Iowa made a run in that game, got a little close, he made a shot. Like, I mean, and he's not doing it in the comforts of State Farm Center. He's not doing it, he's doing it at Carver Hawkeye, and now to a bigger extent, Mackey Arena, because that's a much more difficult environment to play in. That's what I'm just kind of blown away by and most impressed by. Washington comes to town tonight. It's a sleepy, weird game because they talk about a trap game. They're coming off a big victory against Purdue, and then obviously you got Nebraska coming up this weekend. So it's kind of one of those trap games. Washington's not great. I just think this Illinois basketball team is playing at such a high level that, not that they want to sleepwalk through a victory, but I just think they're playing too well right now not to do well tonight. Your thoughts on tonight's game? Is it a trap game, quote unquote, all that kind of stuff that we always talk about in the world of sports?
Yeah, it is, partially because if you look at Underwood, his tenure, there have been a few losses that are inexplicable that happen in Champaign. The most, you look at a couple of the Maryland, games, you look at it basically like the USC game was just like, oh my gosh, how do you lose this game? And they usually a home game loss comes after a big victory on the road. And then you throw in the fact that everybody's looking at a top 5 or top 6 matchup with Nebraska, top 10 at least, I guess. It really gets you thinking that could be the one that's a scary one because, they are college kids. But the maturity of this team seems to be different than what Illinois had the last couple of years. And so they seem to be a little bit more willing to deal with it, according to the cliche, one game at a time. But I do think, this is a team that Illinois should beat. But that's why they play the games. But it is the matchup of really 2 stud freshmen. When you look at Hannes Steinbach, what he's doing, averaging 17 points a game. And then you've got Wagler on a roll. I think seeing those 2 players who are both being talked about as, guys that are, freshmen that are potential freshman All-American candidates, and guys who are potential lottery candidates, depending on how things break. I think that's your story. I do believe Illinois does a pretty good job of taking care of business, because the loss, people get frustrated, but you lose to, a close game to Nebraska, which has aged really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still think the Nebraska team, I still don't understand. Well, I just, in the past, I look at a team like that Nebraska team, and you think, well, if we can go in and harass them defensively, because they're not super quick, get inside of them and make them work, that's what you look at. But the Big Ten is not, there's not any uber quick teams in the Big Ten this year. There's no Darren and Luther who can extend pressure in half court. So maybe this is a perfect year for Nebraska. And Illinois, I don't care how injured Nebraska is, that has been a hard place to play for Illinois for quite a few years, and so I think that's a big matchup. So Underwood has to get them looking at, you do not want to go into that matchup with a 1-game losing streak and then have to go to Nebraska on the road. This is an excellent test for this team to see if indeed their maturity is beyond what they have been in the past, and they will take care of business. And Wagler certainly looks to do that. But if you want to go and let's say take a look at the quote negative, you look and say, well, Purdue shot over 50% from the field, so there's still some defensive things that need to be cleaned up. So Illinois has some objectives that you can look at as a coach and say, hey, guys, I want to win our 10th game in a row, but let's also ratchet up the intensity. Let's get that defense built up so that when Kylan returns, then we're going to be fearsome on that end of the floor. So there's things you can do to keep motivating the players, and this is a good test to see if they can avoid some of the snares that have captured Illini teams in the recent past.
Couple things on that. One, it's with Nebraska. I think people forgot that Fred Hoiberg is a pretty good coach, and what he's doing and the way they're playing and losing players and injuries and all those kind of things. And it seems like a long time ago that he was doing what he did at Iowa State and all those kind of things, but a pretty good basketball coach. So, and then, yeah, you look at, you'd love to see Illinois get off to a fast start and not let that kind of stuff, just you're at home, going to be great atmosphere, I'm sure. Go out there and just smack them and get up double figures early and cruise. And I think, and they've done that several times this year. I think you go back to the Maryland game where it was just, hey, we're up 18 at the half, 19, whatever it was, and just take care of business early. You'd love to see that from Illinois this week. One more basketball before I want to talk football with you. Big picture this thing for me. Has the ceiling changed for Illinois basketball in your mind?
No, because I always tend to be a little more on the optimistic side of the potential. This team, they do have potential to be a Final Four team, but because they're not, defensive, they're not the new sheriffs in town. They are susceptible to a bad night shooting being upset. But again, go back to the Nebraska game. Nebraska's a really good team. Illinois did not shoot particularly well that game. They didn't defend particularly well, and it took a shot with less than 10 seconds to go in the game to give Nebraska that victory margin. So it's not like Nebraska came in and blew out the Illini. And, they've been competitive this year, except for the UConn game. And those are the teams that get them, is the teams that UConn has some nice athleticism that can give a little bit of additional, challenges. I think I'm really intrigued, how do they play these next couple games? And then the matchup that I always am interested in is the Michigan State one because, Izzo showed with Io a few years back, he's willing to put a guy in to crack a few skulls if you come down the lane. Illinois is not a particularly physical team. How will they respond? Because there's going to be a moment in that game when it gets really, really rough. And Jeremy Fears is a very good basketball player who, was interested in going to the University of Illinois. And I'm assuming that even, he's an uber athlete, but I'm assuming he's going to want to try to see what he can do to stop Keaton. And it'll be physical. So it seems like there's about 4 teams that have kind of, pulled away a little bit from the rest of the Big Ten. And then we'll see what's happening with Purdue because they seem off a little bit. Now, I know they don't have a lot of physical speed on that team outside of Braden Smith, but there was something's a little out of sync there when you hear Matt Painter say, I wouldn't do anything different. We just have to execute, which, that's not something he says very often. So you do have to wonder. He said he was very disappointed, so you got to see what's going on there. But I think that team can turn it around as well.
No, absolutely. Mike Cagley from the Illini Guys joining us right now and Off Day with Matt Randazzo. I want to talk a little football with you. I know it seems crazy here in January, but it'll be here before you know it. The Big Ten released the schedules earlier this week, and you look at it, and I love looking at big picture wise, and then I love trying to kind of look at it on different segments, all those kind of things. You look at the schedule here. Obviously, Duke's back at home this year, and their quarterback just transferred to Miami, I believe. So things changing there. You kind of start, Mike, with the actual Big Ten schedules. We knew what the first 3 were. We talked about Iowa yesterday, and they get a trip to Michigan to start. Illinois gets a trip to Ohio State to start. I guess before we start, big picture wise, what jumps out at you when you look at the schedule for Illinois in 2026?
Well, I will tell you, Iowa on the schedule again that's a team that I know they're tougher than nails, and it's better to have Northwestern year in and year out on the Illinois schedule. But as a fan, Illinois and Iowa have been, there's been so many good games between the two of them, although Iowa has had the major advantage with having 2 coaches over the last almost 50 years, where Illinois has went through a boatload. But with Bielema there, I think that to me is an incredibly attractive game. Jumping out at your first conference game at Ohio State, there's easier ways to earn a paycheck. And then that game against Oregon certainly looks tough. To my eye, if Illinois takes care of their defensive line issues, and there's still more time to sign more guys, and that is an area that needs work, I think Illinois could be a team that can be 9-3, 10-2 if things break their way. And you've also got to assume that quarterback position, the guy plays as well as he's supposed to.
You look at it, Mike, and you kind of look at those home games, and I know Iowa fans look at them, which ones you're going to flock to. And you mentioned Iowa coming to Memorial Stadium, and we kind of talked yesterday, and Tom Kakert, who you know well, was on. And there's been a lot of November games. I remember going down to Champaign with a camera, and it was freezing, miserable, and I think it's different now, obviously, with what is going on in Champaign. Is that the best game at home on the schedule? If you could be a fan and pick, hey, what game do you want to go to? Is it Iowa? I mean, Oregon is right there. They're going to be good once again, a nationally ranked top 5 team. What game home-wise, if you had to invest in going to Illinois, what's the best home game on the schedule?
I tell you what, it depends on what you want. You want to see pure talent, well, then you want to go to Oregon, right? Those guys, they spend way more money than Illinois or Iowa on their roster. Nebraska's fun because Illinois had the upper hand on them for the most part the last few years. and their fans still think it's 1989 or something. So it's interesting. But for my money, the game that I think will be the best and most intense and probably will mean the most that late in the season will be that Iowa game. That game will be a classic. I will probably, looking at this schedule, I will probably target to come back for Oregon and Iowa myself, living down in Texas. But those two to me look like the big ones. And again, Iowa's old school Big Ten. Look, there was a point in time, and I don't even know if you're old enough to remember this, but there's a point in time when it was like Mike White and Hayden Fry changed around the Big Ten because people don't remember, but in the 70s, those two programs sucked.
Yes.
They were the doormats of the Big Ten with Northwestern. And they turned it around, and then of course Mike White, handed off to Makovic, and there was still some parity there, between the two programs. And then Ron Gunther, come in and stunk up the place and allowed a sub 400 winning percentage for the football program during his tenure as AD. The biggest disaster in Illinois sports was all this, the Ron Gunther, as long as they're competitive with no definition of competitive, as long as you don't get in trouble with the NCAA and as long as you operate in the black, I don't care what you do. But he submarined the program, but people forget, from 80 to 91, 92, those were the two programs that were bumping up, and Illinois had a 6-game winning streak against Ohio State.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Iowa, they stayed the course with Fry, and Fry did manage to not, maybe get into some of the little recruiting issues that White got into, but White got into such minor league crap, that it was hard to believe the NCAA cared about it. But again, it is what it is. So I think this Iowa game, I mean, think about it. If let's say both those teams have 2 losses, at that point, this game could mean the opportunity to go to the CFP. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but it could be that, and that game may determine which team gets to go and play on the big stage. I don't know if you get that may be the biggest stakes that an Illinois-Iowa game's ever had.
That's a really good point, Mike, when you look at it. One last thing on the schedule itself. We looked at Iowa's, and it was like, man, they start off Michigan, come home for Ohio State, and then go to Washington. It's a daunting first 3, and like if Iowa can get 1, it'd be great, and then maybe 2 would be amazing. Is there a schedule, or is there a stretch on the schedule that's maybe the most daunting? I mean, I guess you look at Ohio State on the road and then come back for Purdue. It's the rivalry, blah, 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 blah. You should win that game. Michigan State with a new coach and what Fitz is doing up there, and maybe that's tough. And then home for a talented Oregon. Is that first 4 maybe the because you look at the road games, Mike, and take away going to Ohio State, which is a daunting task. Michigan State's winnable. Maryland's always winnable. UCLA is a road trip out west, and going out west is always tough, but it's not like UCLA is USC, or I mean it's winnable. And then Northwestern. The road games aren't awful tough besides Ohio State. What's the stretch that you kind of look at as maybe the key stretch or the most difficult stretch in the season for the Fighting Illini?
Well, to me, it goes with kind of where their heads are. But what I really like is you've got Oregon and a bye week. Now, they're right before, the bye week, then Oregon. So that gives you an opportunity to prepare. I'm not certain how you prepare for a team that in a general sense is usually like twice as fast as you are. So I don't know, maybe Bielema, has the defense practice against an offense with 12 or 13 guys on it. I don't know. But that game will test Illinois. As you look at it, if their head's not in the right place, Maryland's got a quarterback who's talented. you could lose to Oregon, and then you're looking at Nebraska, and you don't look at Maryland. They have some physical talent there. I'm not certain if Loxley is the guy to, open up the key to letting them shine. And then, Nebraska is going to be a tough stretch. Again, I think Illinois is fortunate. They don't have that 3-game streak in a row. On the other hand, I don't think Illinois, they've got a better roster than they've had for a long time, but I don't think they're so good that once they run into Ohio State, I don't think they can dismiss any team as like, oh, we're just going to kill them, because these Big Ten teams, there's enough talent now, and people are spending enough money that, unless you're Ohio State or Oregon, I don't know that you can just dismiss everybody. Or, to be honest with you, and I think I said this maybe even on your show, at the end of the year, Iowa was one of the top 12 teams in the country. They may not have been ranked in the top 12, but they were one of the 12 best teams. And that's where Iowa's got to figure out, how do you move up and bite one of those teams above you? And Illinois is in the same boat. You've got to figure out, because if every year you go, oh, look at this, it's Michigan and Ohio State, so we're 0-2, or it's Oregon and Ohio State, we're 0-2. You have to figure out how to make one of those games a win. Illinois has historically been pretty good against Ohio State, historically, over 40 years. But you have to figure out, how do you beat those teams that are spending, $40 million when you're spending 15, and that's not easy. I've been very frustrated because I watch these people talk about how great, John Shire is at Duke, or Ryan Day is at Ohio State. And my first thought is, okay, just picking, I'll be Illinois homer here, but if you switch jobs and put Brett Bielema as the head coach at Ohio State and Ryan Day as the head coach at Illinois, I feel pretty comfortable that Bielema would have won at least one national title there over the last 6 years, maybe more. I'm not so certain that Ryan Day wins 19 games in 2 years at Illinois, because he's got the best of the best. And so you've got to figure out how to coach him. Kirk Ferentz has proved over the decades that he can win with less. So if I'm Iowa, I'm trying to figure out, like, what billionaire or what, millionaire can we get to give him to close that gap. Iowa's never going to spend as much money as Ohio State.
Yeah. But
could they close the gap and give Kirk, a great running back and a great wide receiver, or I'm going to be honest, I don't know why a great quarterback would come to Iowa, but a great quarterback.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because if he has the talent, I think Kirk Ferentz can do more with the talent than Ryan Day.
I completely agree. And when you look at it too, when it comes to Iowa, Illinois this year, I think both Brett and Kirk do a great job getting better throughout the season. I think both teams play their best basketball, best football at the end of the season. Now they both have to figure out how to, it was earlier in the season with Illinois when they lost to Ohio State and lost to Indiana, and they started playing better towards the back end. Iowa, some of the games early, Mark Gronowski was yeesh the first couple games, and he ends up being a really good quarterback. So and that's the thing with the transfer portal as well. Like, both those guys want to develop players, and it takes a minute to develop some of the players they're getting. They're not getting the guys that just, insert and go. They want to develop some players along the way as well, and that's something they both do extremely well. What you do extremely well is cover the Fighting Illini. Tell people about Illini Guys, the message boards, all of those kind of things before we let you go.
Yep. IlliniGuys.com. We cover Illinois sports as thoroughly as you could want it. We have two people, Ked, of course, who's well known in the Quad Cities, covered Illinois for 20 years, Brad Sturdy for over 20 years as well. Those two have inside information that you can't get anywhere else. We aren't real big on trying to be the first guy to put that news out publicly. But what we do try to do is put the rumors and innuendos in our message boards so that our people who are subscribers aren't surprised. Now, occasionally we'll get surprised, but not very often, particularly with basketball. And so if you want to know about it ahead of time, go to Illini Guys. And we have those message boards, and they are very unique because then you can, it's not a just listen to us or read our stuff, but you can actually go, hey, what were you thinking? Or when you said this, what did you mean? And you actually can talk with us. It's a two-way street. So it's much more interactive for the modern era. The other thing we have that I don't know that anybody has is we got like a super chat room called the Game Room that you'll get anywhere from, 40 to 100 people in there during games, living the emotions of the game. And it can get pretty crazy. You got to have your big boy pants on if you're going to wade in those waters. But it's a lot of fun because people, they live and die with the missed shot or the made shot. It's a fun thing. It's only 27 cents a day, $99 a year. And to be honest with you, we don't make a ton of money off it, but it does help us defray costs as we fly people out to the nationwide Big Ten. It would have been a lot easier to do this back in the old days when everything was just a car ride away. Yeah. So that helps out. We also have our IlliniGuys.com YouTube page where you can see the video of all of our podcasts. I'm not certain that anybody needs to do that to themselves or why they would do that to themselves.
Ted's a handsome
but
man.
As
How
you
dare
know,
you?
yeah, but Matt, as you know, it's very popular. So we put those out there and have some fun with it. And we don't take things too seriously. And the other thing is we assume that a coach or a player, if they'd have known they were going to airball it, they wouldn't have shot it. And we assume that the coach is not an idiot, that they've got a reason for what they do. So if you want to listen to somebody just scream and yell about, the coaches and players, we're not for you. Yeah. If you want it to sound like political talk radio, we're not the guys. We have fun. Don't take ourselves too seriously. And then you also don't have to worry about a bunch of politics because we steer clear of that. We figure if you're wanting to get away from all the crap going on, you want to talk about sports, we keep it to sports, and hopefully that's fun and it's a little bit of a respite from the everyday life that people's dealing with nowadays, and just kind of talk about Illini, Big Ten sports, and we'll go into other things. We'll do guy movies. We'll do we'll go into WWE. We'll go into boxing, talk about other stuff as well. But we try to keep it something that at least you're entertained and take your mind off of day-to-day stuff.
You mentioned the game chat. That's and it's funny because Nicholas Baer was on earlier in the show and we texted. We almost had that during the game. Misery loves company.
Yes.
Excitement loves company. Good times loves company. And that Iowa game between the two, like we went back and like joked about it. Like we should just read our text thread on the show tomorrow because it would be, so that's worth its price. It's weight in gold. Get to Illini Guys, check it out. Everyone knows Ked in this area does an amazing job. Brad, Mike, everybody's doing an awesome job. I appreciate you every time you come on here. Enjoy the game tonight. And enjoy Nebraska this weekend. It should be a fun week for a fun 72 hours for Illinois basketball. So we'll talk to you soon, my friend. I appreciate you.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. That is Mike Cagley from the Illini Guys joining us right here on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. Again, it's Washington and Illinois tonight, State Farm Center. We'll talk a little bit about it tomorrow, of course, right here on Off the Air as well. We got much more to get to. You're watching OTA on a Thursday. We'll be right back.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West. the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
You from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Thursday in the Quad Cities. Thursday, January 29th. The month of January is almost over. I mean, it literally flies by. I kind of think I said the same thing about August, but January is that other month where it's cold outside. You got so many things going on, and next thing you know, it's February. So we got a great show lined up for tomorrow. I want to talk about that in a second. As for today, if you missed today's show, it was a wild, crazy evening at Carver Hawkeye Arena yesterday with Iowa holding off USC. Iowa trailed by 10 early. They led by as many as 17, I believe, in the second half. They gave up the lead in the final seconds and then get 2 free throws from Bennett Schertz to win. Anyways, we talked all about it with Nicholas Baer. If you missed it, go check that out right now. Also on today's show, we want to thank Greg Armstrong for stopping by. Always something to talk about when it comes to the world of high school football. We talked about the new coaching hire at Rock Island, Anthony Roome, the new coach of Rock Island football. We talked about what next year will look like. Still some questions with the IHSA on when football season will start, when it comes to safety and all those kind of things. All of that and much more with Greg. If you missed that, check it out. And then a thank you once again to Mike Cagley from the Illini Guys. Check out Illini Guys. Really good stuff. Illinois and Washington tonight. And then, of course, we went over the Illinois football schedule as well. So thank you to all of our guests for joining us today. Tomorrow on the show, hoping and I'm planning on having Logan Jones join us on the show. Iowa offensive lineman, former Iowa offensive lineman now, Remington Award winner, and getting ready for the NFL draft. So looking forward to that conversation. Also, Colton Sigel, the former Rock Island standout, son of former Rock Island head coach and Rock Falls head coach Tom Sigel. He's a grad assistant down in Illinois. We're going to chat with him about getting into the realm of coaching. Obviously, Colton, a really good basketball player at Rock Island. I believe he played at Carthage as well. So getting his footing when it comes to coaching down at Illinois should be a fun conversation with him. And then this weekend is the Royal Rumble. I'm really excited about it. We'll preview it tomorrow as well. So a big show coming up on Friday. We want to thank you guys for watching or listening to today's show. And we will be back with one more episode of OTA for this week coming up tomorrow. We'll see you then.